Hey everyone, this time on Tim Talks Audio, we're checking out some Reverb plugins from ARVerb. This is Room. ARVerb is a very small company based in France, and they reached out to me and sent over Room for me to check out and create this video for you guys so you can check it out as well. Room is really particular because it models different spaces, and whatever you put into this space, you actually have the ability of moving it around within the room. Yes, there are other plugins out there that do this, but this one is very straightforward, very easy, and it allows you to have your different elements sound like they're in the same room, but as we all know, if they're in the same room, you can't be on top of one another. So it helps position the different elements within this room, creating separation and a more natural sounding reverb. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's dive into the DAW. Okay, so here it is. This is ARVerb's Room. If you don't want to go over the controls like we typically start off with on this channel, use the chapters and jump to the audio examples. That'll be down below, or you can click somewhere in the description. That'll be down there too. So let's start off with the controls. It's very simple. As you can see, you have these 5 dials on top and then the 3 different selections for room size, pan, angle, and distance down on bottom. So let's actually start with the controls on top, because really the bread and butter, in my opinion, of this plugin are those bottom 3. But let's start with the top. Decay is your reverb time. It's how long this source signal fed into this reverb is going to take to finally decay to an inaudible volume. So basically how long it takes to die out. And this control goes from 0.25 seconds all the way up to 4 seconds. So it can be very long. I think I had this around 2 1/4 or whatever. We're going to mess around with it anyway. Another cool thing is anytime you hover over any control on the bottom, it tells you what it's doing. So for brightness, reduces the reverb time of high frequencies. Ratio between high frequencies reverb time and low frequency reverb time, because different frequencies in a room will die off faster. You'll notice that the top end might die off a lot faster or a lot slower depending on the room you're in. If you're in like a really hard chamber, the low frequencies may die out first and the highs are still bouncing around. Or it could go the other way. Maybe you're in more of a dead kind of reverb room, or one that's not nearly as bright, and your high frequencies roll off faster and the lower frequencies just kind of have a little bit more length. So you can adjust that here. Low bypass is exactly what you think. It's a low frequency cutoff. So you're not feeding these lows into the reverb. Help cleaning up some of the mud that may be in there. And then we have diffusion. That's how much the sound within the room is bouncing around. But if we hover over, balance between the short-term spatialization and the later dense diffusion. And then of course, mix. At this point, I think we all know what it is, but it's blending between your wet and dry signals or your affected and unaffected. Now let's go to the bottom 3. Room size is exactly what you think, the size of the room you're in. There's 3 options: small, medium, and large. Pretty easy, right? Use small for faster build times, large for denser diffusion and less coloration. And then medium is in between. Pan angle. This part is really cool. With pan angle, by default, and I've been messing around before I started filming, by default, pan angle is in the center. So let's say you're in an actual room and you want to record the reverb. You can put a microphone in the center of the room. Whether it's closer to the front wall or the back wall kind of doesn't matter right now, because that's distance, and that's the next control that we're going to get into. Center is where the microphone is in conjunction to the left and right walls. So you can actually position things within the room. If it's in the center, it's in the center of the room. If you want to maybe have it lean a little bit more left, just start clicking over to the left and you can see it's pushing where that instrument would be in the room off to the left-hand side. And you'll actually hear this later too, because when you're listening, the source sounds like it's coming from the left, but you're still getting reverb on the right, because this is what would naturally happen. The reverb isn't just directional, it's bouncing all over the place. So it sounds like it's coming from one side, but the reverb is coming from multiple sides. And then we kind of hinted to it. Distance is how far back or from the microphone in the room the instrument or the source is. So if we bring this all the way up, it's right up front. It's like me talking into this microphone. I'm right there. And yes, maybe there's reverb within the room. Or I need to be further back and I could be all the way in the back of the room by changing the distance. And so now I'm all the way in the back of the room, but a little bit to the left. This is how you can use this reverb to put different elements within one room and then position them so that they sound like they're playing together. Those are all the reverb modifying controls. And then along top, you can see some very basic things. Here's your menu, preset browser, and preset toggle switches here. There is an A and a B option, and you can copy what is on A to B and then start messing around again, and then just a master bypass button. That's all the controls. Now let's get into how this thing sounds. If you've been watching me for a little while, you know that I like to put my time-based effects, things like reverbs and delays, onto its own dedicated bus or aux track or effect channel or whatever it's called inside your DAW. Here in Studio One, I like to use bus tracks, but you can use an effects track as well. So that's exactly what I have going on right now. I'm using this very soft ballad, and I have both my vocal, which is here, and my piano, which is here. They both are sending to this reverb. But this is the instance of room that I'm using. And you can see I have a medium size, 2.5 seconds, 2.25 seconds, we'll say. And this is what we were just messing around with. So let's start with just this. I'm going to put things basically at default, and then we're just going to mess around. And I'm going to start with our piano. Here's the piano without reverb on it. There's some baked in because it was a MIDI piano. So there's a little bit baked in, but you're going to have more of an ambience sound once we kick on this send, and you'll hear that. So not bad, a pretty little reverb, but this is where you're going to want to listen on your studio monitors, or if you have headphones in, that's going to be great because I'm now going to mess with the pan angle and the distance to push the piano into a different spot in the room. So now make sure you're listening on your studio monitors, some really good speakers, your headphones, ear pods, whatever you want to listen to on a mobile device or laptop speakers. It may not come across, but here we go. Now we're only going to listen to just the reverb. Well, I'm at 100% wet. I have my bus channel soloed, so we're only listening to the reverb. And listen for the piano. I'm going to click around with pan angle as it's playing and just listen to the piano move from the right-hand side all the way over to the left. And now this same effect gets exaggerated a little bit more as we push the microphone or the instrument further away from the microphone. So now with everything 100% left, let's push the distance all the way back, and then we'll do the same thing going from left to right. Now, if you're kind of like me, when I first opened this up, I thought that having this reverb and being able to change the positions is kind of cool, but there's a reason why you can put plugins on the track itself or use a bus like I typically do, and a lot of other guys typically do. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn off the sends to the verb, and we're actually going to put it directly on the track itself. So I'm just going to put this back to normal, because what we're going to do now is we'll adjust the piano and its reverb, put it somewhere in the room, then we'll copy it to our vocal and change the pan angle and the distance. So everything else will be the same, the decay, brightness, low pass, the diffusion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is going to stay the same. All we're going to mess with is the pan angle and the distance. And then what we'll do is we'll put them into different spots within the room. Maybe we'll have the vocalist a little bit closer and on the other side than the piano. We'll push the piano back into maybe right now it's at all the way in the back on the right. Maybe we'll bring it a little bit closer and a little bit closer to center, and then the opposite with the vocal. Okay, that's not bad. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close this out. I'm going to get rid of this other instance that I did before I started filming for you guys. And now I'm just going to drag this over. It's going to copy all of the settings. And now I'm just going to change the pan angle and the distance. These are the exact same from the piano. It's on the right 50%. So let's put the vocal to the left-hand side, 62%. But we'll also bring it a little bit closer, just at about 50% closer because we're going from 75% to 25%. So we're going to have the vocalist a little bit closer and a little bit more towards the left-hand side.
Kiss you softly on your way to sleep from so many miles away. I tuck you in so you feel safe and warm, far from your long busy day.
So now we can definitely hear she sounds pushed to the left and a bit closer. Now, if we get everything out of solo and we're just going to listen to the song now, we can hear how these two elements will sound like they're in the same room, but at different distances.
Kiss you softly on your way to sleep from so many miles away. I tuck you in so you feel safe and warm, far from your long busy day.
So something I've noticed as I'm recording this, if I go back into the vocal and the reverb here, even though we have the mix kind of low at 18.5%, my lead vocal isn't coming flat through the center and kind of just favoring the left a little. It sounds like it's pushed off to the left. If I want to maintain that center vocal, what I'll probably do in this case is this is an instance where I will use a bus because I want to make sure that my lead vocal still comes out the center. If you're going for a effect where the vocal is coming to the side, by all means go ahead. But I want this vocal coming straight out of the center. I just want the reverb to kind of wrap around this vocal. So I'm going to turn my send back on my lead vocal, and then my piano, I'm going to leave the instance on the track itself or the channel itself. Now if we listen, here's what it sounds like.
Kiss you softly on your way to sleep from so many miles away. I tuck you in so you feel safe and warm, far from your long busy day. I hug you gently and I kiss your.
By doing this, I have my vocal up the center and kind of just favoring the left a little because of how we set everything up. But I'm okay with that because it's kind of doing what I want of wrapping the vocal in this reverb and not pushing it off to the side because that's where you're supposed to be. So we've alleviated the small issue I found, and I wouldn't even call it an issue. It's just something I found. But you could see as I was recording this, well, how do I fix that? I want to make sure my lead vocal's up the center. I'll just send to the reverb, and then that can get pushed off to the side. So I still have my vocal up the center, the reverb for the vocal a little bit on the left, and the piano reverb on the right-hand side. Room from ARVerb has a free 30-day trial. So if you want to check this out for yourself, use the link down in the description. Also, the normal price for this plugin is 40 euros. Again, they're based in France, things are in euros, but it's a really affordable and really lightweight on your system reverb where you can change where things are. You guys know me at this point. I like simple plugins. This is simple and it gets the job done pretty quickly. So this is really nice to have within the arsenal. That's all for now. If you found anything informative, please like and share the video. Want to talk plugins, maybe get some mix reviews, or just have a good time? Jump into the Discord. There's going to be a link down in the description. Want to work with me mixing your next record? I'd love to work with you. Let's get that started at timplansbaum.com. And if you have a question, ask it in the comments and I'll answer it in a future video. Thanks for watching.